the President of the Indonesian Independent Association of Professional Social Workers, or IPSPI, along with specialized social worker associations and provincial chapters. Special thanks to our collaborating universities, Muhammadiyah Jakarta University, Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta, Benawan University, University of Indonesia, Pajajaran University, Polytechnic of Social Welfare of Bandung, and Pasundan University, and to the Social Welfare and Social Work Students Associations Forum for your strong support and partnership in this event. To all social workers, lecturers, students, humanitarian workers joining us via Zoom and YouTube, your presence is truly an honor and we sincerely appreciate your support. Ladies and gentlemen, the Social Work International Lecture Series, or ILS, is a regular forum aimed for encouraging global knowledge exchange and strengthening the practice of social work through learning and collaboration. It serves as a bridge between global insights and local actions, empowering social workers to grow and lead in their fields. Today's session is held under the theme Social Work Theory, Practice Alignment. This theme is central to our profession. At the heart of social work is the connection between what we learn and what we do. Theory helps us understand people, communities, and the challenges they face, while practice turns those ideas into real actions. When theory and practice work together, our interventions are more ethical, more effective, and grounded in evidence. Yet gaps remain. Too often theory stays in books, while practice relies only on institution. Bridging this gap means letting practice refine theory and using theory to guide and strengthen our daily work. Our goals today are simple but meaningful: to reflect on why connecting theory and practice matters, to explore how practice can expand and improve theory, and to learn from one another through international dialogue on how to close this gap together. Now, to officially open the session, we are honored to invite Dr. Puji Pujiono, President of the Indonesian Independent Association of Professional Social Workers, or IPSPI, to deliver the opening remarks. To Dr. Puji, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Sandy, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Puji Pujiono, President of the Indonesian Independent Association of Professional Social Workers. First and foremost, I would like to welcome warmly our distinguished speaker today, Dr. Lavanya Vinayagaswamy from the Madras University. She is a young and emerging professor specializing in medical and psychiatric social work. At the same time, she's a Canadian social worker as well, licensed. This is the 13th edition of the Social Work International Lecture Series. Yesterday, I was saying to the team that we surprised ourselves. We have been sustaining for so long, right? And we have gone through the first year. I think that the most difficult part is gone. Now we're going to proceed with that. Now, allow me to speak about the topic before we pass it on to our distinguished speakers. I would like to highlight this in three different layers. At the very micro layer, at the personal level, social work is a practice-based profession. And each and every one of us, and if you don't have one, you must have one day, we must have what we call personal practice framework. We individually, every one of you and myself, must have. If you don't, you must have one to assemble the values, the knowledge, the purpose of the profession, the context into some sort of structure that we hold very dear personally. And each everyone of us have different practice framework, right? Although the bases are the same. Now that's the importance of aligning theory and practice at the personal level. When you undertake your clinical work or community-based task assignment, you need to be assured that what you are doing is aligned with the theory and that the theory is aligned with your practice. The second layer is at the professional level, at the social work profession level. We have eclectic knowledge base. We have indigenous knowledge. We have a complex value system. And we have challenging environment as well. So within the profession, we need to have the cogent and coherent alignment of theory and practice. And we need to have a practice wisdom that continuously flowing and informing the profession. This is where our problem is, that we have a lot of disconnect. The third layer that I would like to highlight is at the multidisciplinary layer. As Dr. Vinayaka Swami would tell you later, a practice that is multidisciplinary in nature, like medical social work, psychiatric social work, justice system and correctional, we must interact with other professions. That's also the point where we need to align our practice with theory, because that's where our credibility, our accountability, and integrity of practice is put to test. Now, I will not take over the whole lecture, just framing that into our concern, and open the red carpet to Dr. Vinayaka Swami to share with us her reflection, her experience, and her research findings. Let me thank the team under the leadership of Tisha. Let me thank Sandy for being a host today, and my younger ideological brother, Uga, for being moderator today. I would like to see more of him to lead this conversation. I know how dynamic he is. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a good deliberation. I myself definitely will enjoy this conversation. I'll be stepping to the background now. Thank you. Over to you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Over to you, Sandy.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Puji, for your thoughtful words. Your message is strong foundation for today's discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we now officially open the session. Before we continue, we would like to invite everyone to kindly turn on your cameras so we can take a group photo together. Okay, so everyone, please turn on your cameras so we will have a group photo together. Okay, everyone ready? I will count down in 3, 2, 1, cheers. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1, cheers. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Once again, thank you to all guests and participants for joining us today. Before we continue, here are a few quick housekeeping reminders to help ensure a smooth session. Please turn on your Zoom camera. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are invited to speak. This session is conducted in English. If you need support and understanding, feel free to turn on the closed captions on Zoom. We encourage your active participation. To join this session, please use to join the discussion, please use the raise hand feature or type your question in the chat box. We will prioritize live questions during the Q&A, followed by selected written ones. You are welcome to ask questions in either English or Bahasa Indonesia. The moderator will assist with translation when needed. Please note that this session is being recorded for documentation purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now moved to the main part of our program. It is my pleasure to invite our moderator, Mr. Uga Pratama Gunawan, as the Arsos SPPSA, known as Mr. Uga. Mr. Uga is a social worker specializing in children and family services and a lecturer at the Department of Social Welfare, Pasundan University, Bandung. He has extensive experience in academic, professional, and community-based social work with international exposure through ASEAN forums, global workshops, and youth exchange programs. Uga has been actively involved in professional organizations such as the Indonesian Association of Professional Social Workers, or IPSPI, and the Indonesia Social Work Consortium, while also contributing to numerous research projects, publications, and community empowerment initiatives. Recognized for his achievements in teaching and professional service, he continues to advance social work practice through education, advocacy, and international collaboration. We are very honored to have him with us today. Without further ado, I hand over the screen to Mr. Uga.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all distinguished participants. Welcome to our 13th International Lecture Series. Today, we would like to talk about the social work practice and theory alignment. My name is Uga Pratama Gunawan from Department of Social Affairs, Pasundan University, Bandung, as your moderator for today's discussion. Before we start the discussion, we would like to congratulate the IPSPI for the 27th anniversary. Last week, we wish all the best and luck for IPSPI for all the years forward, and we wish IPSPI to growing more better and stronger each day for our social work community. We also would like to welcome to the representative of the Ministry of Social Affairs Republic of Indonesia, and also the Indonesian National Council of Social Welfare, and also, of course, to Dr. Puji Pujiono, MSW, as the President of Indonesian Association of Social Workers, along with all the colleagues from the professional association and provincial chapters. Our thanks also to the ILS University partner. There are University Muhammadiyah Jakarta, the Islamic State University of Jakarta, Binawan University, University of Indonesia, Pajajaran University, Polytechnic of Social Welfare of Bandung, and Pasundan University. And to also the Social Welfare or the Social Work Student Association Forum, or Forkomkasi. And of course, to all the distinguished participants, the social workers, lecturers, students, and humanitarian workers joining us today in Zoom and YouTube online, we once again welcome you to the 13th International Lecture Series of Indonesian Association of Independent Professional Social Workers. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for supporting us through all these years so we can deliver to you this event. We also celebrating this 13th annual discussion every month, and we are pleased to give you for this whole year this lecture series, and we wish to continue each month so we can continue together build our social work community strong and stronger each day. Ladies and gentlemen, and all distinguished participants, before we start our discussion today, in the world of social work theory and practice are undoubtedly inseparable. Theory is the foundation and the key to the social work practice. But one question often arises: are theory and practice related? and how are they related and also aligned in our practice area. Today, we will discuss this topic with Dr. Lavanya. Ladies and gentlemen, let's we uh, welcome our distinguished speaker for tonight discussion, Dr. Lavanya Vinaya Goswami. Hello, good evening,
Thank
Dr.
you. Good
Lavanya.
evening. Good evening from India.
Greetings from Indonesia, Dr. Lavanya. How are you?
I'm going great. I'm expecting a lot of discussion in this series.
I'm sure all the participants are excited to have our discussion tonight. But Dr. Lavanya, please let me introduce who our distinguished speakers for tonight's meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Lavanya Vinaya Goswami. She is an assistant professor and also a master of social work, specializing in medical and psychiatric social work at Madras School of Social Work, Chennai, India. And she has a PhD in social work from the Tata Institute of Social Science. Her career spans in academia, research, and the field of practice across prominent organizations, including Habitat for Humanity in India, where she served as a senior manager for monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, or MEAL. She has extensive experience in impact assessment, research methodology, capability approaches, and program evaluation. Her academic background includes a Master of Philosophy in Social Work from TISS and MSW in Mental Health and Counseling from the University of Madras, Chennai, India. She has worked as a research fellow with the Indian Council of Social Science Research, or ICSR, focusing on elderly care and social security, and has field experience in psychiatric service and community development across multiple states in India. She is also registered and licensed as a Canadian social worker. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the discussion, first of all, I would like once again remind you about the rules in this discussion. First, we would like to ask you to turn off your microphone during the discussion session unless you are pleased to speak. And secondly, if you have a question to the speakers, you can write down your question in the chat box. We are looking forward for interesting and talkative discussion, so please feel free to ask. And together, without further ado, let's start our discussion. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, please give applause for Dr. Lavanya Vinaya Goswami. And Dr. Lavanya, the time is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of the participants who are here. This is myself, Dr. Lavanya from Madras School of Social Work. And greetings from India, especially from South India. So I'll be just sharing my slides and we can start discussing on it. Okay, since we are technically working together. Okay, is my slides visible?
Yes, Dr. Lavanya.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, thank you all, and thank you so much as a practitioners, as a educators who's interested in this theory practice alignment. I would like to start my presentation thanking all the people who have supported me in this journey as a social work educator, motivating me, becoming both a theorist as well as a practitioner. I would like to thank all of them and all the universal souls. My presentation is starts with my experience and how my experience has made me to theorize. And after I theorize, how certain questions reflected for an alignment purpose. So this is how the flow is. And we'll have a lot of questions for reflections, which we will be able to discuss at the end of the presentation. Okay. So the first, what happened with me when I was in a full-time practice educator, I would say we call it as a field work. educator or a practice education, the vocabulary has been changing quite a lot in our world of social work. So my journey started as a faculty supervisor in practice, basically supervising student full time. So I used to go to the field, and I used to have a lot of conversation with the students as well as the fieldwork agency supervisors. And I used to also take field notes. So it's not just monitoring my students to take field notes. I used to take field notes. So when I used to take field notes, I used to write and reflect, journaling the notes. And I found these notes are not just notes, but they say something about the reality, because we work in the field of human services, and every day we have to reflect in terms of the social problems which are emerging in different forms. So when I started looking at the field notes, I said there's something we need to analyze. So if you look at from a research perspective, these are datas, but if you see from fieldwork notes, these are reflections. So then I started, okay, these messages are something different which we need to start analyzing it. See, that's how the journey started. That's why I say the journey from practice. Next, I'm going to share some of the questions asked by the students and how we were able to solve it. So in the slide, you see one of my students asking, why don't you teach us project proposal in the first semester? Then we say, I said, okay, the first semester we want to have an idea how, because MSW is a subject where people from multidisciplinary come. It's not just undergraduate bachelors in social work who enter MSW. It's also the other social science as well as science discipline engage in masters in social work. So we wanted to first expose you to the field realities, and that's more very important for us, and then look at the technicalities of building your skills and skill sets as well as the capabilities in terms of your understanding of application of skills. Then the question asked by the student, then why do the fieldwork agencies, like we call in India, fieldwork agencies are nothing but non-governmental, governmental organizations, medical hospitals, then childcare institutions. So then they ask, why do the supervisors in the think that we have already learned all these things and that's why we are coming here? Why don't you give us input? So that sort of a reflection happened between. This is just a sample I'm sharing of what part of my analysis. And then my conversation with the supervisor, the agency contact person, that we call it as a agency supervisor. So this is how it goes in the pattern in India, where you have a faculty supervisor, then you have agency supervisor. So you've been monitored by both the professionals, one as a practitioners, one as a educator, so that the student is molded to be a professional in social work. So one of the so I asked them, so how do my students support your organization and what was their learning? So the conversation went like this, like, we are expecting newer understanding and newer problem knowledge in the terms of the problems we face. But I feel your students are a little more critical, and they're evaluating our approach. They say, oh, since being a MSW, you feel like we can say what is right and wrong and all those sort of evaluative things they said. I said, don't worry, I will try to mold them and I'll facilitate their learnings. So this is how the conversation, this is a sample of the conversation, and this is how it was happening. So then I decided, okay, let me start working on these notes. And of course, these are just a everyday reality of as a social worker, educator, as well as supervisor. Then we have to be more scientific, because we just can't go with our emotions and go with our belief systems. So how do we put it in scientifically? So this is how my theorization started. So when I started the conversation and noted down the conversations, then I realized that, okay, is everything, is my slide audible?
Yes, totally fine.
Okay.
Yes.
I had some technical issue, that's why. Okay, now we have to bring a scientific temperament. Now, why a scientific temperament is very important in social work interventions is to reduce our subjectivity. we have to be highly objectively looking at an issue, because we are dealing with, I would not say just humans, but the human ecosystem. And it is important that our understanding has to be objectively done and not emotionally or becoming, when I say emotional in this sense, it is also about our belief systems. How do we bracket our belief systems and just look at in a very objective manner, which the science does it. So then I have to start looking at a framework, and that's how I brought in the conversation analysis with, and then this conversation analysis was introduced by Sachs and others in 1960s, where they said, you should not look at conversation just as a language, as a linguistic aspect, but you have to look from a beyond linguistic. That is, you have to look from the aspect of messages which has been conveyed to a person. So no conversation is casual. That's what the framework says. All conversation has a message for one another. So then I realized, okay, let me start working on it. And that's how this entire scientificity came into place. And then one of the major findings was there's a lot of alignment issues, gap in the alignment, like theory as well as the field practicum, which is part of your social work degree, as well as the field realities. There were three gaps. One is what we teach in the class, which is mapping the theories. Then we look at what is a field practicum of syllabus or the curriculum talks about, and then what is a field reality. So these are the emerging gaps. So then I thought, okay, now this is a finding. Is that the finding enough? So I thought, let me take this, just not leave with it. And I've started with the framework. I just put it on the logical aspect, and I try to look at the framework. So before I get into the framework, I thought I will do a lot of research in terms of what is global literature talking about fieldwork. So let's see, fieldwork is one of the vocabulary which was initially when the after the Great Depression, when you look at the history of social work in globally, after the Great Depression, after the charity organizations, societies have started. So this was something very, very prominent word which was there. But now, today we call fieldwork, which is an identity for our social work education. It's called a signatory pedagogy. That was in 2008. You will see in the slide that the Council on Social Work Education, USA, recognizes as a field education as a signatory pedagogy. So when we say social work, we identify as so field work as our core identity compared to all the other disciplines, social science disciplines, where, for just to give an example, when we look at anthropology, ethnography is their identity. When we look at philosophy, the body of application is phenomenology. When we look at sociology, we look at theorizing as their identity. So it's, you have their own way of looking at the discipline and the knowledge of how the discipline is going to produce knowledge about human beings. Now, in the sense, social work looks largely at society as a laboratory, and then how do we work on these problems and theorizing it. So you go to, and we have adopted, in fact, we have adopted completely from the discipline of education. So we have taken it from discipline of education, where he has proposed that, what do you mean by signatory pedagogy? Where a discipline which talks about theory and practice, and especially in the field of education, a lot of things, experimental design, are used in improving the quality of education, as well as how much the students get able to understand. And we borrow a lot of theories from the cognitive theories of psychology, different types of theories. So they say it is very, very important that there should be a balance, there should be an evidence, there should be scientificity, and then we define ourselves as a practice-based profession. And next, we look at what happened after that. There is I'm just going through a little bit on terms of the global context of field education. Now, the International Federation of Social Workers, which we all look at, all the countries look at International IFSW in terms of standardizing syllabuses, standard curriculum, and even aligning with our fieldwork number of hours during the in social work, bachelor's in social work. Currently, they are looking at 900 hours as compulsory for our completion of an MSW degree, where some countries like Canada, Ireland, Australia are all looking at number of hours to be more. Especially, I've recently came to know that Australia is saying that if you have to have a license, you have to have 1,200 hours or 1,100 hours of field work, which you have to complete within your master degree. And then you can get a license, so how do you align these are the global contexts and how each country has to align, because today if you see are we are calling ourselves as a global citizens and not just a citizen of a particular country going around. And there is a lot of migration happening with the developed countries, where social workers from different parts of the world are migrating to developing countries, or vice versa, to have a better understanding of their profession, or as well as a recognition. So in that case, we all have to align with some of the standardization which happens across the world. So looking at what is I'm very happy about the way it has been articulated in IFSW, where they say social work in context. So what are we talking about social work profession in the context of India, or in the context of Asian countries, in the context of global North? In How do we understand social work, and what is how do we define it? And then they're talking about social work in practice. And then in this, they are talking about the skills and knowledges. Like today, you have the competency framework across used by different countries. How do we identify a competency of a social worker? Now, today we have this particular vocabulary used as an indigenous population, aboriginals. And even in India, we also have the indigenous knowledge. How do we integrate these indigenous knowledge in a much more scientific and basically document scientifically, and have it as standardization in terms of understanding our social cultural aspect? So we don't just bring some concepts from any part of the world and then apply to our context and ask them people to change. That's not going to happen, because we are going to be a failure in that sense in terms of social work. Next, practice education. And this is where we need to really look at this. If you're going to call yourself as a practitioner, we importantly have to understand what is practice education. It is not just the manual which talks about what is asked to professionals in future to look at social work practice education as a separate. I'm not saying you have to separate from theories, but how do we align social work theories as well as practice education, so that you're teaching what is relevant to the context of today's world. And one more example I would like to share is, if you have heard about, everybody's familiar, sorry to use the word heard, everybody's familiar with ICD-10, DSM-5, diagnostic manual, statistical for diagnosing mental health disorder across the world. So that an ICD-10, International Classification of Disease, which has been a reference material for all of us, whether we are in global north or south for diagnosis of any diseases or illnesses or disorders, we use that. Now, this has been a very clear structured, which we have been following, because the language is the same everywhere. Now, the practice education should be designed in such a manner that it is catering to the local as well as the global connect, as to be there in terms of your practice education. I think this is what they have been talking about, and I think the slide is self-explanatory, and I think people would have got able to read some of it. It's a very lot of concepts are together put in. It's a and achieving this sort of a concept within the 2 years of social work is a challenge for all of us, but we can still attempt and make it. Now, I'm going to talk about Indian context. Now, as you're all aware that India, a South Asian country, as well as a country of diversity in terms of culture, language, geographical location, as well as the problems. So you can't see the water problem in South India happens the same as in North India. There's an extreme difference in the context. Now, Tata Institute of Social Work is the first institution in the country started social work education. And And we all look at Tata Institute of Social Science as a model in terms of regulating social work education. And looking at some of the objectives of social work education, especially practices, learning by doing is the pedagogical approach they have it, which they all publish in their website, and that's their base on which we are looking at it. Now, when you look at the literature of social work in India in terms of practice, you see a lot of differences. Sectorial, when I say sectorial, is more than the methods. Like, you all are aware about the 5 types of methods in social work. You More than the methods, it's about thematic areas we are working on in terms of vulnerable population, women, children, elderly. These are one of the sectorial intervention methods people use. Like for children, and we largely use case study, casework methods. We call it now working with individuals. The vocabulary has changed from casework to working with individuals. And if you're looking at urban groups, urban migration groups as a group work we do, and communities which are being defined in terms of geographical as well as in terms of social stratification, that is also being considered as a group work. So these are some of the in terms of the experiences in India, which has been highly highlighted in literatures in terms of practice, and then modeling it. Now, so you know, um, what to say? Was some of the challenges which were faced by the educators as well as the fieldwork practicums. We can't be seeing social work field as a practice education just as a component. And this is my main argument, which I like to place it is, it's just not a component. It is more than a component. I make it very strongly because I believe if you look at a medical professionals, physicians, after they read a lot about theory, they have to go to the operation theater and have to practice it. So it's not just a component, but it is a essential part of our social work education. Now, one of the debates which happened very, very important in the context of India in terms of field work among the educator is about COVID-19. So the COVID-19 pandemic, where there was a lockdown and all those were happening in India, still people continued online classes. But how do we do online field work? How do you do? So that was a question which everybody started talking about it, and they realized out the field work is how relevant in terms of social work education. It highlighted COVID-19, the importance of field work. And there was a lot of questions around happening about it. Can we have a field work without field work, a social work degree? Like, you can have is it possible? Debates about distance education and social work, but what happens to the people who have to be supervised? But then the ethical aspects of in terms of how do you deal with individuals in trouble, in problem. So see, these are some of the aspects which were in context of India, which I've just highlighted. And next, this is the framework which I it what to say I drafted it based on the data, and then I had copyrighted under the government of India the framework. So now it is available to anybody and they can use it as an evaluative framework. That is why I call it as an evaluative framework, because this framework will help you to know whether your fieldwork component, which you call, has all these aspects in it. Whether it's not about the theory, but it's about the practice education syllabus having all these component in it. Whether are we looking at theories which are more relevant? We read a lot of theory from Karl Marx to Freud, psychoanalysis, until Weber, Max Weber. So we do a lot of theories from psychology. We do a lot of theories from psychology. We do a lot of from economics, from game theory to microeconomics to the macroeconomics, and all this are part of our foundational courses. But are they relevant to our context of today? That's a question we need to ask in our practice education syllabus. Now, what theory, what perspective are we looking at? Are we integrating the ethical standards of social work practice in how all the ethical dilemmas which a student face in the field work, how are they addressed? And how do they practice ethical standards in field work? Because it's a practice based education, and we need to ensure that we cannot experiment. We ensure there is a safe environment, not just only for the student, but it's also for the service user. For the client, we have different vocabularies for the client, service users, the beneficiaries, or the intervention which has been designed. So all this, how do we practice ethical standards? Because these are all vocabularies which have been highly written, memorized, but how do we practice it? And how do you ensure the student is practicing during the tenure of 2 years in social work? Next, what are the competencies we are looking at in terms of behavioral practices in the context of social work? I come from South India, where the college I studied and I'm working today is one of the first college in South India on social work education. And they cater to the lot in terms of the industrial needs. It's an industrial base states, and you feel we have a separate specialization called Masters in Social Work in Human Resource Management. Now, this is a degree which is different from all your business degrees and human resource management degrees. Now, this we train our students to look at the perspective of seeing an employee as a human and not just as a labor or an employee. So this is a perspective we have been asking the students to have in terms of you know in terms of their practice, in terms of, especially in the behavior aspect. See, you just can't go into a company and say, okay, we are a MSW. No, the company or the organization has a corporate, has its own setting. It has its own behavioral expectations. So in that context, how a students has to be behaving themselves. So we train them on that. And very importantly is how much of us are able to theorize models from the field, because every day the emerging models which needs to be documented for intervention based. Are we having these models in our syllabus? Are we, how much are we updating with the news models? It's not necessary it has to be theorized in a very scientific manner, but even a case study or a narrative from a practitioner tells us what is the context and what is the problem as shaped in a different forms. So that sort of a models are very, very important. Now, once this has been done and copyrighted, I have taken this to different colleges and asked them, would you like to use this framework to look at your own syllabus? Uh, it's nothing to evaluate or right and wrong about the syllabus. It's just to have a language of alignment, what we teach and what we practice and what we say and what we preach in terms of social work profession. So I had a lot of social work educators. I presented to the social work educators largely because I would like to come as one of the challenges why social work educators, these invisible hierarchies are there between the social work educators and the practitioners, which is there. I could also feel similarly in other parts of the country, world also. Now, some of the insight which came out is um, what specific theories can we identify? Apart from general theories, are we looking at what are the different specific theories which we will have to focus more in terms of the context of a country? Now, India, as I said, it's a multi diversity language and all, but you have a social hierarchy system. You have where you have your social position is based on social stratification like your caste, class, gender. So that's a very important classification we have. Um, Whereas if you look at US, you have the racism as one of the classification, right? Immigrants and the ethnicity and all those things. So each state, each country has its own way of, having a hierarchical systems or I would say it's nothing to do politically, but it looks at the way it has systemized in terms of identifying the different groups. But are it in a circular? No, it is more hierarchical in its nature. So in this phase, we would like to look at how the social system theories, especially system theories, play an important role in understanding the social problems. So that has to be mapped as an important theory for practice education. Though we study, read, and go ahead with that, but how do we apply? So identifying a particular theory is relevant to our context is very, very important. That mapping has to happen in the terms of practice education. So was the theories. And secondly, a very important aspect which came out in terms of skills and capabilities, where how are we going to give the right skill at this at the in terms of the formation of a professional, what skill has to be done and how that skill is relevant to the field realities, as well how it is able to facilitate in learning it. So that sort of a skill mapping has to happen from day one they have entered into the course to the when they become a professional and practice it. So that sort of an important is very, very important, rather than teaching something after they finish their exposure. So that is something we have to look at, like the observation, types of observations, types of communication, um, type of interpretation of the observation. These are something which are fundamentals in terms of, um, you know, practice education at the earliest stage, and not getting into analysis or critical thinking very immediately at the first stage, which is because they don't have the tool to do that. And the third result is, we have to start building in the evidence-based practices. So this is not a new thing which is there in the knowledge of social science. Evidence-based practice was always there for policy research. Most all the policies which are being taken across the world are based on the data. Maybe today we are emerging with something called data science, which is not new. Maybe the names have come and we have used data with the technology and it has become data science management. But data was always part of it from Durkheim. Everybody is aware about Durkheim. The great sociologist, he started the scientificity of observation. And today, everybody can talk research only because of Durkheim, which he did when he started this book called On Suicide. And I think it's important that how do we train ourselves in practice evidence-based practices, and it's very, very relevant in the context of India. Why I would say that? Because today the corporate world has been influenced largely for social corporate social responsibilities. So the corporate has to share their profit in terms of social development. Now, in that case, how do you bring accountability? And another concept called social return on investment, where the money I've invested, how do you bring the change? So these are very, very critical questions which the social workers, as educators, we have to reflect, as well as the practitioners have to contribute in strengthening these gaps. And okay, so my presentation is done. I think I'm on time. Have I exceeded my time? Still, how many more? How much time do I have?
Oh, no, please, Dr. Lavanya, you still have 15
Okay.
minutes.
Oh, 5015. 15.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Dr. Lavanya, please. 15 minutes. You still have 15 minutes,
Okay.
Dr. Lavanya. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So now, having said the context of, the importance of practice education in social work and the need to highlight it, I think we need to have certain questions for discussion. And I'll give you some examples based on my understanding and my experiences in the field of mental health and health. So first, do you think practice theory and theory practice alignment is needed? Do you think is the first question. You can also write it down if you want in your, take a pen and paper. And I think I see a lot of my students there in the talk, and I keep telling them you have to write and no typing. That's very important. No more typing in the phone. So I said, first you have to ask yourself, practice theory and theory practice alignment is needed. Genuinely, I feel it's needed. Then only you can call yourself as a professional. Otherwise, we can't call ourselves as a professional, because our our even a small suggestion or a feedback should be based on a particular accepted truth, or you can identify a truth in your current experiences and theorize it. But you have to stand on a theoretical understanding, because you can then, you know, bracket yourself from your. I think somebody has raised their hands. Sure, we can have a discussion. Um,
Yes, of
Definitely,
course.
we can. Sorry, the I just got down in the flow. The one is the base on which we are standing. So theory is a foundation. I keep telling my students and all to my fellow fieldwork educators and practitioners that good heart is not needed, I would say. Because you have a good heart, you have chosen this profession. Not just social work, any human service profession, you have decided to work with human beings because you had a very good intention to contribute. But it doesn't mean we should go ahead with our own understanding, because our understanding is limited and painted based on our own socialization. That is the issue. We can, it's a thin line, where you can go this way or that way based on our because we are also human beings, we are also influenced by our own social cultural context. Now, how do we train ourselves to move above the social context of our own belief and then go ahead? And that's where it's important. Theory is very, very important, and our suggestions are very objectively done. And we talk a lot about non-judgmental, but how do we really practice non-judgmental? It is not an easy thing. But that theories can help us out to protect ourselves from becoming judgmental and even giving a wrong interventional designs. You see a lot of development projects as failures. You see a lot of international development projects are being non-successful because we think readings are not important. That's, I think this is the biggest background in which we lack to define ourselves as professionals. So it's important we have a foundation. Second, we have to define our roles in an transdisciplinary team. When I talk about mental health or medical social work, it is not just one person. You have the psychologist, you have the psychiatrist, you have the occupational therapist, you have a psychiatric social worker. It's not just a social worker, but a specialized social worker in mental health. And then you have now you have a new term called rehabilitation counselor. So person with specialization in disability in masters, they are into, as a team in terms of intervening mental health disorder, preventive level or promotive level or a prevention level. So we have to define ourselves in the field of human service. Means that that's the only way we can identify ourselves, and we have an expertise. That's very important. Why theories are important? Then only we can talk in a very, very professional manner, and also ensure that our professionalism is being understood by other disciplines. Otherwise, it's very difficult. They say, okay, what I face in India, I don't know about in context of Indonesia and other participants in other countries, that they ask us, okay, social workers, what do you do? We also do social work. Now, what a politician talking himself as identifying as a social worker, and we investing 800 or 900 hours of practice education and 2 years of social work. And how do we define ourselves? I think that's very, very important to have your base and foundation, and especially ethical aspects. We have to stand. I've given you the slide where you have the well-being. Now, this is a language. Well-being has been taught like anything. Even WHO has defined that health is a state of well-being. Now, nobody has defined what is well-being. Now, each one has have the way of defining it. Now, I was surprised to see in one of the big corporate, corporate, which is has a base in India, but it's an international manufacturing company calling something called as well-being calendar. So I asked them, what do you mean by well-being calendar? Can you define it? They said, ma'am, we got it from your vocabulary. But so we just use well-being calendar, but not knowing what is well-being. Now, who has to define? They said, you teach us, madam, so we will be able to tell us. Now, second, a role of a social worker is emerging in the medical field in terms of India, I would say, especially in health social work, like we have the IVF. I'm talking in the terms of especially in South India, as well as in national level, how the recognition has happened in IVF, where the IVF, you all know, the artificial insemination and fertilization, where a lot of unethical aspects happen in terms of uh, sperm donation. And India is a very good country for medical tourism, and especially South is for medical tourism. So in that sense, how ethical standards are being practiced, and social workers has to be very clear about what ethical practices are, and we have to align with the law. Of course, we have to look at the first thing as a law, and then we look at ethical aspects, because law and ethical aspects play a very, very important role, and we have to be there to tell that to the medical team. So that is very, very important. And in terms of another aspect which has emerged was a human organ transplantation, where there is a transplantation which is happening, and organ transplantation has been encouraged, and we play an important role in terms of organ donation. And it is not an easy thing. And why somebody has to donate their organs when they have declared brain dead? Now, how do you talk? I remember one of the experienced transplant coordinator says that when something like this happens, they'll say any brain dead or accidental, and they immediately say, okay, now the social worker will handle this. So all the doctors and other team members will say, okay, now they have to talk to them, and we are not able to handle it. Now, how do we go about doing it? For that, we need to understand who is a patient, who is a caregiver. So all this has to be learned from the literature as well as from the practice. Next, we have the HIV, which is, I don't think HIV is eradicated from the world. It's in different forms now and with different sectors. And how do we handle it in terms of the social workers are highly recognized, medical social workers are highly recognized as a counselor. Now, again, you should look at the debates around a medical social worker or a psychiatric social worker can be a counselor, or even a master's in social work or a master's in psychologist can become a counselor. That's a question. I think these are some of the things which we have to think when we have to define ourselves in an interdisciplinary thing. And now, why theory? Because your scientific observation is very, very important. Otherwise, one science a formula everybody knows, E is equals to mc square. Whether you go to Arctic Circle or you go to the Kanyakumari, which is the lowest point of where the Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and Arabian Sea meets. So there, what is important is that how we are thinking beyond our personal, cultural, and structural biases. I think that will be handled only if we are good at theories in reading about it. And then social justice, we talk a lot in the definition of social work, as well as in terms of uh, core values, all those things are there, but how do you deliver it? Especially the interpretation of the word justice. Rawls, the sociologist, they have written a lot of literature on how do you define justice. The interpretation of justice is based on how you know the one who has the resources defines justice, or how do you define justice in a human right framework. So all these are something which is very, very important for us to understand. And very important is only we are good at theories, we are able to regulate the labor market. The labor market defines our, to be honest, our salaries and our remunerations and our professional standards, everything in a way, they play an important role. And if we have to talk to the labor market, we need to be very clear about what we are qualified in terms of our knowledge. I would like to share only one example, which I had a recent explanation to a big manufacturing company in India, that I asked them, so who's a counselor? How do you deal with human resource? He's a human resource person. And I asked, how do you deal with? So we say, I play the role of a counselor. I was shocked. You play the role of the counselor. You are a human resource manager and you play a role of a counselor. He said, yes. I then said, then why don't you have an appointment of a industrial social worker or an industrial counselors? They said, see, the point is, how do we fix the scale, the salary slab, in industrial, are you technical person? Where do you come as? So that was a question was asked to me. I said, see, we are very, very technical in it. Our skills, our knowledges, everything is technical. So you have to place us at a technical level. He said, okay, that's something new which I have to discuss with my organization and we have to work on it. So, we have to redefine ourselves in the labor market. Next, very important when we were talking about, accountability. See, we just can't walk out saying a suggestion and say, I, a social worker, I know everything. No, we have to be accountable for what we say. Because of one reason, we are dealing with life, and not just life, of a human life. It's now we talk about environmental social work. Life is also an environment, nature. So why we have to be accountable is very simple. We have to be accountable because we are dealing with a human life and the life in the context of nature. So we cannot take any life for granted. This is what why we have to be accountable, because being a Canadian social worker, I was fortunate to get trained myself the way the systems have designed on every single vocabulary even you use to your client or to your service user. How accountable are you? That sort of an understanding has to be there. See, we are just learning. I think the developing countries are are trying to not just pick up these vocabularies as part of their course, but how do we practice it and or contextualize it in the context of our own practice. And next, if there is theory and practice are not in aligned, it's going to be a confusion, chaos, and a disaster, because you're going to just do judgmental attitude, and that's going to, and if it's judgmental and you're in a powerful position, your policies are going to be insensitive. It is not going to be catering to everybody, especially policymakers. I think that is why we need to be very clear about theory. Very, very important. And now, okay, let us come to the truth. Now, let us be very honest. First, what is happening within our own profession? That's we have to discuss. One is there is an invisible hierarchy. We are producing practitioners, but when you're a fieldwork as an educator, there is an hierarchy between practitioners and theorists. They don't come together. There are many ways of bridging their gaps, but first we have to be very clear that we are first practitioners and also then educators. It's because you're not producing theorists like a psychologist or not psychologist, sociologist. I'm sorry, not a psychologist, sociologist. So I think it is very, very important that we have to, ensure there is a space where we share our knowledge as well as come together in creating a knowledge system where you can address one another and we support one another. It's just sometimes, for an example, I would say that how many of us are using psychoanalysis? We are all studying about psychoanalysis. But how many of us are using psychoanalysis in practice? It's not going to happen. But so it's going to be years and years. First, you have to do a psychoanalysis for yourself. It'll take another 15 years. And then only you can practice with another person, which will take another year. So it's not going to be easy because it's a framework. It's a licensing. Like I am getting trained myself with EMDR, eye movement desensitization therapy. Now, to be a therapist, I have to be very clear from where do I come from. It's about memories. It's about trauma, and I should be open with it that I don't know everything under the earth because I'm an educator. No, I think these sort of a deconstruction has to happen. At the same time, the practitioner should not feel you only preach in the classrooms and we know better than you. No, I think this attitudinal aspect between one another has to resolve. There should be a form of a platform where we share knowledge. And second, our curriculums, has to be highly contextualized. Like the social stratification has to be an important aspect in the context of India, as well as um, to be very honest, mental health intervention got its visibility after COVID-19 in India. Before that, the person goes is a mental health professional. They have gone to different preachers, family counselors who are their own family members. And finally, you realize that, oh, is there something wrong? We need to have interventions where, in terms, there are expertise will be there to suggest. That sort of an intervention is happening, but how are we going to maintain that momentum? Uh, Very interesting is in insurance in India. Insurance doesn't cover mental health counseling sessions, but after COVID, you see a lot of people, insurance companies giving therapy charges also covered in their insurance, medical insurance, which is see how the market takes up things. Before we do it, the market is easy to pick up. And they've commercialized it so well that, okay, you can go and take a counseling session. You don't have to have stigma because now it is covered as part of the medical insurance. So it has become normalized, but it is taking it up. And very important is the role of international organizations, especially IFSW, I'm saying, and ASS, associations, global associations, IFSW, and International Association Schools of Social Work. They have to play an important role in understanding these differences, because when you're talking about social work as a practice-based profession and with a global standards, and we teaching starting our classes with definition of social work from uh, IFSW or association schools of social work, but how are they helping us to have regulatory bodies? How they're standardizing it to us? That sort of a system has to be very much important, and it's at a level of policy where the government of a country also have to look at it, and we have to come together, otherwise it's going to be a chaos. And each one who are genuinely interested in doing social work and getting themselves trained should not have a compassion fatigue. We social workers have the compassion, we love our profession, but we are also tired about it, and that's because of the ethical dilemmas, and we don't have systems to address it. I think that's why I would say compassion fatigue, which all of us have gone, and we will think, okay, why don't we change our career after some time? Yeah. So these are some of the questions which we have to look at, and it has to start from our theory practice alignment. So this is what I wanted to share today, and thank you so much, Indonesia, Social Works of Indonesia practitioners as well as educators, for openly inviting me and asking me to share my experience and my understanding about theory practice alignment. Thank you so much. And can I stop my sharing so that I can see you all?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please give applause for Dr. Lavanya Vinagaswari. Thank you so much for your wonderful and insightful lecture. You see, Dr. Lavanya, there are a lot of similarities between what happened in India and also in Indonesia. Yeah, regarding the uh, field of practice. Yeah, you know that sometimes when the social workers do the work in the field, they often ask, is the theory is aligned with what I'm doing in the field, and what you has brought to us today is really enlightened us about the importance that we have to understand the theory itself. it's really, really important for us. And I do believe, same as like you, that when we're talking about the social work curriculum, the School of Social Work has to understand and realize that we are not just only producing uh, uh, the theorists or the researchers only, but the most important, we also producing the practitioner itself. So, Dr. Lavanya, once again, thank you for your insightful lecture. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will move to the Q&A session. For the distinguished participant who would like to ask some question, are pleased. Firstly, you can ask directly by opening your microphone, but before you opening the microphone, you can tap the icon raise hand first before you allow to ask your question directly, or you can write down your question in the chat box. Anyway, Dr. Lavanya, since your wonderful speech, I noticed that there is one participant who are eager to ask you the question, and it's Miss Dini Adriani. Hey, Miss Dini, you can open your microphone, please.
Hi, but sorry, I
Hi.
couldn't on my
Hi,
camera. That's
Dini.
okay.
It's
Hi.
been a long time. How are
I
you?
know. I know. I'm doing fine. How yours?
Yeah, Dr. Lavanya, maybe I will introduce you. Dini is one of our colleagues, and now she's taking her Master of Social Work in Thailand, and now she also work in Thailand. So, Dini, please, you can introduce yourself, and please, you can ask Dr. Lavanya your question.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Uga. So, hello, Dr. Lavanya. It's really nice to meet you.
Hi.
Although it's not in person. So my name is Dini. I'm from Indonesia actually, but currently I live in Chiang Mai, Thailand, northern part of Thailand. And I'm taking my master degree in Chiang Mai University. So actually, and thank you so much for very insightful presentation. But actually, I would like to ask the question. But before that, I would like to share my opinion about regarding to your question about or why does the theory need to align with practice? Would that be okay if I share my opinion? Okay. So I could say because why it should be like related or link or align because it can ensure that professional work is both meaningful and evidence-based. When theory connects with practice, it could provide a strong foundation for decision making and helps practitioners understand why they are doing and what they do, not just how to do it. At the same time, I could say that practice offers real life insight that can challenge, refine, or even expand existing theories by making them more relevant to current needs in our region, in our country, in our district, for example. And this alignment also encourage fairness and inclusivity by reducing bias and supporting value like you said, social justice and equity as well. But the most essential part, it built a more professional and human approach to service where knowledge and action work hand in hand to create a better outcome for individuals and communities as well. And
Yeah.
the second question that you asked for discussion was about when theories and practice are not aligned, it could be make the chaos and lack of accountability and leading to a judgmental attitude social policies and law towards human ecosystem. And I also would like to say that when theories and practice are not aligned, it can create a chaos and confusion, in professional settings, because there's no clear framework guiding action, and this lack of alignment often lead to poor accountability, as decision may be made inconsistently or without evidence-based reasoning. And yeah, I could say it can also result in judgmental attitude, where personal or cultural bias shape a practice instead of objective principle. And by over time, this can be disconnect, can negatively influence social policies, law, regulation, constitution, and making them less effective in addressing real needs and potentially harmful to human ecosystem as a whole. And in sum up, the absence of alignment weakness professionalism, undermine trust, and reduces the positive impact of social work and related fields as well. And my question will be, in what ways can students or practitioners reflect on their experience to check whether their practice align with social work theory? That's it. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dini, for the question. Please don't clarify if you want to answer Dini's question.
Yeah. First, I would like to say thank you for for giving us a lot of answers. Some of the questions which was coming into my mind, and I was just reflecting, and I was trying to find an answer. So I'm happy to see some of the answers which you were saying was also very, very relevant to what I have expressed it, and also it shows that we are all in the same boat in trying to understand how we will be able to bring that professional into our theoretical understanding, as you rightly pointed out, is in terms of decision making. Because as I said, we are dealing with a life, and when it comes to decision making, how technically as well as ethically as well as contextually we are able to do it, that can be only be and it brings a confidence to us only when we are backed with a theory. I think that is very, very important. And you have said very well in terms of decision making. And another important questions which you asked was in terms of how do practitioners, you know, ensure that their practice has or practice intervention, we will say, is being guided by the theoretical framework. See, I would like to share one experience when you know when I was going to be trained as a psychotherapist under the law of Canada. We have a Canadian social work law under which the license happens. So according to the Canadian social work law, where you can become a psychotherapist when you practice 300 hours, of practice in a health setting, mental health setting. And what is very important, which I learned from that system, is mentoring. Mentoring is a very, very important aspect, where mentoring your you have a mentor who will mentor you. They are all professionals, they are not students. That mentoring happens while we are a faculty or we are a fieldwork supervisor, but after 2 years, we have to have a lifelong learning. That's a concept. We are we have to consider ourselves as a lifelong learner, and not we know everything in social work. That sort of an we have to deconstruct that concept within ourselves, and we have to become ready to be mentored. So that's how we are being able to ensure that the practitioners are in alignment. So one beautiful thing happened when I was living in Canada was that when a problem comes, so one thing is told to us is, can you just, for first 45 minutes, we have to listen to the problem of the client. So we listen to the client and we come back, and there are all the fellow, peer group. sit down and we have a set of theoretical framework which is related to that particular context. So, so we discuss the problem and we ensure that which theoretical framework can be relevant for addressing this problem. So we have to define the problem and then we talk about it and then we go back because there's a break of 15 minutes after which we have to go and interact with the client again. Now, mentoring is one aspect and second is the peer learning. We do a lot of peer review, right, in our academic writing, but I have a different opinion in terms of peer review also. Sometimes I feel your paper is rejected or accepted. When we read some of the papers, we don't even know how this paper got accepted, So like that, but in terms of it's just a reading, we think, but it's a knowledge. So we have to be much more ethical in terms of peer review. Similarly, in terms of practitioners, there should be continuous mentoring that has to happen, as well as a peer review in terms of our knowledge between a social worker, practitioner, and theorist has to happen together. That's the way we will be ensure that we are in a right way of understanding the theoretical aspect in our practice. These are my understanding, and I'm coming out with these insights based on my understanding. So I don't know how much you are convinced with the answer, but I thought I could say about two things: mentoring and peer review.
That's a really new insight for me as well. I would like to say thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dini, for your questions. And Dr. Lavanya, I think the participants now are heated up because we have another question in the chat box. So please allow me to read the question in the chat box. We have two questions from two participants. First, I would like to read the question from Mr. Ujang Hidayat. Hello, my name is Ujang Hidayat, and I currently work as a social worker in a government setting. Your explanation is very interesting, and I have a question for you. First, social workers often work with paternalistic public policies. Using a transformative pedagogy approach, how can a social worker can facilitate dialogue and critical reflection among social assistance programs beneficiaries so that they become not only the objects of the policy but also subject who are able to participate in and demand more just policy change. And the second question, regarding the diagram on the framework of regarding the diagram on the framework of practice education in social work education, you explained that professional ethical standard and competency and practice behavior align with social work practice education. Please explain how these two components, which are derived from a normative, ethical, and practical competency perspective, respectively, influence each other's and shape effective social work practice. Why does this framework emphasize that the two must be integrated? So, Dr. Lavanya, are you want to answer the question directly, or you want me to read the second question from the second participant?
So I thought I'll first finish with the first two questions. One is this. See,
Please,
we
Dr.
have to
Lavanya.
understand that public policy. You have a special set of people who work on public policies, especially people who have done a masters in public administration. So they don't have based themselves in the terms of social work theories, but they are based in the knowledge of public administration in terms of the system. We as India has been ruled by the Britishers for quite a long time, and they have developed a system, and we still follow the same British Commonwealth countries. We call ourselves that people are ruled by the Britishers, so we still have these systems in place. And you have a set of disciplines which work on public policies. You have the social policy disciplines which are coming, which are already there. You have the population scientists. So these are some of the statisticians. So these are some of the disciplinary people where they look at public policy as a specialization and they do a course on that. Any master degree, you have a master degree in public policies, especially people who have done social science go into that. Now, we have to understand is their perspectives are different. For one example, I want to share, which recently I was called for as a social expert for an upcoming urban city in, near my Chennai city. So Chennai is a city and in Tamil Nadu, and the city is expanding. There is a rapid urbanization which is happening, and not even urbanization, it is becoming more metropolitan city. Now, what happened? The city is expanding. Now, it was just expanded, not in a so planned manner initially. Now it is expanded very, very technically. Now you have a separate department in the government where you will have these urban planners. Now, who are those urban planners? They are little technically engineers, study, and they also have a social perspective. They have a geographical understanding about this place. Now they called me to say that, can you communicate to the people who are there living in those villages? Because around many villages are going to be converted into a city. Now, what is going to happen? Will they buy this idea? Now, I'm very happy because to be part of this team, because they've understood that as a planners, we are becoming we are not able to understand the real problem. So that sort of a sensitivity has come within the discipline also. That's a very good progress, I would say. And it's a kind of technical, no, about the urban planning. Your city is going, your places are going to become a city, and these are the things that are going to come in place. Will they have an understanding, about all these things? But I like the way the government officials said to them is, see, we have brought in this plan because I don't want the people to misguided by the other middlemen about what is happening, in the terms of we are talking about development. And so we want to be very genuine. So I think that sensitivity, as you mentioned, is a dialogue. And for the dialogue, we should first understand who you're talking to. So we have to understand their background also, Oh, okay, they have a different particular training in a particular discipline. So we can't expect them to understand. So we need to, have a elasticity of our thinking process and bringing him, especially to the language. I'm not talking about English or your any language, but language in which we are trying to communicate what is our intention. I think that is very, very important. And participation, and especially any policies, we should have, a participation of the beneficiaries of the program, whatever the program is, and who you are implementing. They should be important people in the planning. They should not be a beneficiary at the end, but they should be a stakeholder in planning the policy. I think that sort of an practices can bring in a lot of sensitivity into our social policies, which are happening. And I think that is a good change, I would say. And secondly, in terms of the diagram, which the framework, see, we have to understand even ethics. There are different types of ethics. There are situational ethics. There are, ethics is not just right and wrong, moral ethics. When you go into the theories of ethics, framework of ethics, you'll see that ethics are normative is right and wrong, and it is reflects on the law. Your law basically is the ethical aspect of it comes from law, where you say this is right and this is wrong. And now this is ethic in terms of the law, constitutional rights and constitutional protection of an individual in a country as a citizen. Now, in terms of ethical, we are also looking at the situational ethics. We are looking at in a particular context, in terms of, you say, cultural context, what is an ethics? So I'll give you one example in terms marriages have to be registered. Then only it has become legal, right? Once it becomes illegal, when there is a separation in the marriage, you can have some sort of an accountability. So there is a smooth separation and child is being taken care and all those things. Now, some culture doesn't believe in registering the marriage. Now, there, how do we use they are, according to law, it is wrong. But if it look at the situational ethics or the, moving away from the normative ethics. Feminists use a lot of situational ethics. So there we have to understand, what according to them is ethics, and is it aligned with the law? And if it's not aligned with the law, how do we, make it as a, uh, in terms of making them to reflect on how it is going to affect another human being. So I think ethical aspects are very important, and not just by looking at law. First point is law, and second point is the different ethical aspects which are governing us informally, and such aspects are to be studied, and that has to be trained for a social worker. Next is your practical. In terms of competency, is a skill. It's completely skill. Now, you know when it comes to skill, how much are we analytical? How much are we critical? They are two different concepts. They are not the same. I give example of this game. We have a lot of games in the. Initially, it was in when I was a small child. I used to see that in notebooks. Sorry, in some of the magazines where you see a same picture but things are missing. And I use that as an example in my class of analytical thinking, is that what is missing, first we have to understand. It's that something is missing. Now you have to say you have the fundamental rights in terms of accessing to food security and all those things. Is there first present or not? That is analytical. And secondly, why it is absent, and that is critical. I think this sort of skill sets are very, very important. Not everybody is into all skills. Some can think, some has a difficulty in articulating in written language. So it's a practice. So I think it's very important that we understand how a student is also looked at in enhancing the skills which are already there, and how we have to have some basic skills to be trained. So these are the things which are, I think I was able to answer your question. I hope you're convinced.
Thank you, Dr. Lavanya, for your answer. Maybe for Mr. Ujang, is it clear for the answer from Dr. Lavanya? Yes, Dr. Lavanya. Maybe we can now move on to the next question. This is the question from Mr. Ishak. He is the lecturer in the Department of Social Welfare in Bengkulu University in Sumatra. So the question from Mr. Ishak, or the actual question is relatively simple. He said, social work theory must be aligned with practice. However, in reality, both the profession and stakeholders do not involve organizations, and practitioners themselves are more confident in their own beliefs, not learning from theory and applying it. What can we do as educators? Thank you.
You see, a difficult question, but let me give a straight answer. Cancel their license as a practitioner. Finish.
Wow. Yes.
No, we can't be encouraging.
Right?
No, we can't be encouraging this. See, this happens in the medical field, no? If you, in the field of medicine, if a doctor does something malpractices or anything which is going to hurt the patient, you're canceling the license, right? That's why the licensings are very important in social work. I think it's very, very important. Only this way we will have to ensure that, the practitioners are regulated. That's a role of a regulatory bodies, right? I think this is very straight from my heart that this is how it has to be. Because I've seen how many licenses are being cancelled if you are not practicing, or if you're doing a wrong practices in Canada. So why can't we are doing a lot of things, borrowing literature, everything. Why don't we borrow these regulatory aspects to our country also? That's the question.
Wow. Dr. Lavanya, that was a really direct answer. So maybe Dr. Lavanya, this is interesting because we noticed that you are also licensed as a social worker in Canada. And you mentioned before, I'm sorry, this is before we move to our next question. I want to ask you, by your experience in Canada, what would happen if the social workers did not follow the rules? What will happen to them?
See, the patient or the client has the power to sue the social worker in the court.
They will sue the social worker in the court.
Yes,
Wow,
they
that
can.
was
See, that is why
yeah.
there is a law to protect the social workers. See, I asked the question to them, to my mentors and all. You have to pay $250, Canadian dollars every year to the associations, regulatory body. Why? Because they are the ones who are going to protect you when you do wrong.
Yes, yes.
So this is how it's been working on. It's not just an association, but also how the associations play an important role in regulating professionals in terms of malpractice. I'm surprised to see when I was in Mumbai, where's another part of western part of India. I think I'm seeing an echo. I'm hearing an echo. So the western part of India, where when we went to a government hospital, they said why there was a lot of complaints against a particular social worker, because why did that social worker has to do things which a medical practitioner has to do. Now what will they do? They will take a disciplinary action against them. That is as an institution. But what a regulatory body, what is going to happen? They have to cancel the license, right?
Yes.
I think that's very, very important. I think I'm strongly for it.
Yes, Dr. Lavanya. Maybe I want to also share my experience because I used to work in the medical field of social work also. And speaking of medical social work, I noticed that in this Zoom, there are also Mrs. Firolia. She is the head of Indonesian Association of Medical Social Workers. Oh, this is Mrs. Firolia. Hi, Mrs. Firo. How are you?
Ya, halo, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good
So,
evening, Dr. Lavanya, Mr. Uga, and
hey,
Good evening.
everyone.
Viro, maybe because Dr. Lavanya mentioned before the strict rules in the medical field. In your experience, is it true? And how the social worker could, like uh, try to follow the rules in the medical field of setting, especially? Maybe. What about you? How about your thought, Miss Virolia? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the questions. Honestly, I'm just joining the Zoom, and I really do appreciate Dr. Lavanya for all the insight that you have shared with us. So my name is Virolia. Currently, I'm working as a transplant social worker in Dr. Cipto Mangunkusumo, Jakarta, and also honor as the chairman of Indonesian Association for Medical Social Worker. So in our practice, I do believe that regulations, law, and also license, like you said before, is very, very important because that's the baseline or the foundations that mentioned we already do it professional, right? And because medical social worker is working with doctor, nurse, and etc., they really really appreciate the professionalism, right? And they always ask about the license, the certifications before we do something, like when we want to do the therapy or when we want to give the interventions, they always ask about our credit or our certifications as well. But I know that in Indonesia, this is not in a good, ideal condition because I think the implementations of our code of conduct or the ethical is not that, you know, not that strong. But I would like to say that medical social worker, because we are pushing in, or we are in, we really working with doctor and also multidisciplinary team. So we really pushing. They really push us to be more professionals. So we really straight to the rules. But I don't know in another sector or maybe in another place they do the same as, of us or not. And I also want to mention that I think it is very important because yeah, as Dr. Lavanya said that if you want to grow, or maybe we want to develop our professionalism, we should really strict to the rules, and also enhancing our competency also gitu, certifications. If we want to do something, we must have the certification. I think that's very important to implement in Indonesia. Yeah, hopefully in the near future we can implement it together. Yeah, maybe that's all, Dr. Lavanya. Not that strict in Canada and also in India, maybe, but I know, and also all the medical social worker really aware, because we working with the professional team, like the doctor, the nurse, and dietitians, and etc. So yeah,
Yes,
maybe that's all that.
thank you, Miss Vero. Yeah, I do on the same page with Dr. Lavanya and also Miss Vero. Yeah, that if we talk specifically about the medical setting, when we work with the college like doctors, nurse, psychologists, psychiatric, there are certain rules and a lot of things that we have to follow in order to deliver the best practice and the best services for our clients and patients. So thank you so much for the insight from Miss Firolia regarding the medical social worker in Indonesia. And Dr. Lavanya, now we are moved to our second term of question. And I noticed there are two questions, and this question comes from a students, Dr. Lavanya. So it will be a great experience for the student from Indonesia, that they can learn a lot from you in India. And also I want to encourage our friends from India, maybe the student or president or the educators, if you want to ask some question or you want to give some opinion, you are also pleased. Okay, Dr. Lavanya, please let me allow me to read the question from our beloved student here. I think, yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's a student. Okay, this is the question from Mr. Fahri. Hello, let me introduce myself. My name is Fahri. I would like to ask, in your opinion, what is the most important quality that social work students should develop in order to become practitioners who can be effective? That's the question, Dr. Lavanya. You want to answer directly, or you also want to what you want me to read the second question? It's also same from the student.
So is that I'm just reading to understand it. I'm a student at the University of Indonesia. I'd like to ask, how can social workers negotiate the tension between the application of universal theory and unique contextual needs of local community? Is that,
Oh
or
yeah,
is it something
that's the
else?
second question. Yes, it's from Miss Lesda Rahmadita. She is
Okay.
from Bengkulu University, and the question is, she would like to ask you about how can social worker negotiate the tension between the application of universal theory and the unique contextual needs of local communities. So there are two
Okay.
questions from two students, Dr. Lavanya.
And what was the, if you, sorry to say, can you repeat the first question? Like,
Oh yeah, okay.
I'm,
The first question is from Mr. Fahri. He asked you, uh, in your opinion, what is the most important quality that social work student should develop in order to become practitioners who can be effective?
okay. So
Please,
the
Dr.
one
Lavanya.
word answer is accountability. The students have to learn accountability. I am accountable for my action. I think if we are able to cultivate that, I think they'll be very, very effective in professionalism. I think that's the one quality. It is very difficult. It's very challenging because we are afraid to be accountable because we keep do a lot of procrastination, whether we are right, wrong. I have said that so that even it's wrong, I have to say it is right because my ego gets protected by that. So I think if we are able to teach them what is accountability, I think we are very successful to be effective social workers and professionals. I think that's my understanding and learning and my experience. I have learned it, and hope that the person who questioned is convinced with that answer. And next is we were saying about tension between the universal theories as well as the unique contextual needs. Now, uh, See, when we look at theories are something established truth. Now, these truth can be questioned, especially that flexibility as social science has. Now, when you look at the definition between science and social science, science, wherever you go, the carbon is the carbon and the water is water with H2O. There's no change in the structure of the element in the water. H2O is H2O whether any part of the world you go. So it's an established truth. Whereas in social science, we are more scientific. At the same time, the truth has a validity. Like, for example, I want to say many disorders which was there in DSM-4 is no more a disorder in DSM-5. Okay, now some were considered normal behavior. Now you have a new disorder which is coming up but is not part of in terms of mobile addiction. It's a new form of an addiction. Yeah. Now in social science, the theories are always evolving. But what we have to do is as a social work educators as well as we have to introduce the students with different types of theory and look at the validity of the theory for today. That validity of a theory will not be the same now. And secondly, what are the new emerging theories which are coming up, the truth which coming up has to be also exposed. So we have the huge responsibility of sharing this to the students and then they can able to decide, again, the decision making between which is more relevant. We have to make them to think. So I think that tension can be resolved when we give that spectrum of, understanding to the students.
Wow, Dr. Lavanya, thank you for your answer. Okay, to Ms. Lesda and Mr. Fahri, maybe you want to give your opinion, maybe about what Dr. Lavanya has said, or is it enough for the answer from from Dr. Lavanya? Okay, well, Dr. Lavanya. Oh, it's Mrs. Firolia has raised her hand. So please, Miss Firo, it will be the last question in the second term. So please, Mrs. Firo, with your question.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So it is related to Dr. Lavanya explanations. Like I think Dr. Lavanya tonight really give me and teach me a lot of core values, how to be a great social worker. I mean, like maybe sometimes after we do, we have like I have practiced around 5 years. I think I need to revise my core value and also, I mean, expand my core value about social worker. Uh, and I want to ask Dr. Fanya because Dr. Fanya is also a lecturer. In my own experience, I think at my university era, I really didn't. I think I was not in an environment that pushing me to learn about the theory and also related or discussing about the current issues with the evidence base, with the journal and etc. So I, in my experience, I start to have that kind of mindset because I was working with the doctor. We know that in a doctor environment, like when they talk about a case, when they want to do something, they always related it with the journal, the current journal. They really aware about it, about the newest theory, something like that. But in my experience, I think at my university era, I didn't get that. I didn't get that, that value. So do you have any suggestions for the university or lecture? I think in this Zoom there are some lecture here and also some university. I think it's very important to to strengthening the core value in a research environment, and also evidence based practice, how they finally have the habituations, or they already accustomed with the with this value. I think that's very very important. Maybe you have some suggestions for us. I think that's my questions. Thank you.
Okay, you are making me to say a lot of the truth. So the first is, see, we cannot be master of all, even in terms of subject wise. I cannot be teaching something different which I am not aware about it. So it's very important that we have expertise. That's where we can build knowledge, we can build values. I think expertise in a subject is very important. So you constantly generate theories which are truth about the situation. You cannot be jumping from one place to another. That means there is a very superficial understanding. So I think if there are universities which will be specifically take a decision and a position in terms of producing a thematic knowledge, then you become a expert in that, and then you call them and they will help you in regulating the practice, or in an interdisciplinary team. I think that sort of a space has to be there within the institutions, where you say that, okay, we are going to work for the next 5 years on this particular thematic area. Then you become an expert. Like, you can't be writing articles in every aspect of social work unless you are an expert in particular understanding. I think that sort of an understanding is very important, because theory of what is theory of truth? First, theory of truth talks about consistency. Only if it's consistent everywhere, it's called truth. Otherwise, it's not called truth. So there are different theories on truth itself. And I am a fan of Aristotle a lot. And his classical logic tells you whether it's true or not. You don't have to go and ask and everything. You put it on the table, and that table says that it's not true. So I think that sort of an expertise has to be created in the space of educational institutions. Then we can say we stand up for certain values, only because based on these evidences of work and experience, we have been observing things for quite a long period of time. And that will give you a lot of what is standardized knowledge of the subject.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya. Hopefully that in our environment in medical social worker, we can have that standardized for our practice, and also producing some, maybe documentations to enhance our practice. Thank you so much. Really, really insightful.
Thank you.
And with that, we wrap up our second 30-minute discussion. And everyone, please give applause for Dr. Lavanya for her insightful and wonderful lecture. Dr. Lavanya, it's already 8:57 p.m. in Indonesia. And unfortunately, we have to wrap up and finish our discussion. It's really wonderful and exciting discussion, as we hope. And once again, Dr. Lavanya, thank you so much for your insight. It's really wonderful. We really love to have you here. And I noticed that you were in Indonesia by the end of this year. You are coming to University of Muhammadiyah Jakarta, and we are happy and we can't wait to have you again here very soon. Once again, Dr. Lavanya, thank you so much. And all the participants, let's give Dr. Lavanya a big applause for her wonderful lecture. Thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya, once again for your insight. And I want to quote this one participant in the chat box who she said that she have a great session with you. She got a lot of insight, and thank you so much. And warm greeting from her. Her name is Alia. She is from Indonesia, and now currently she's pursuing her master degree in the Department of Social Work in Delhi University, India. This is
Okay,
also one
very
of
good,
our
very good.
colleagues for Indonesia. So Dr. Lavanya, once again, thank you so much for your
Yeah,
insightful.
I would like to, say goodbye to all the participants, and I'm so very thankful for taking their time and spending year listening to me. And thank you so much for it. If my perspectives are different or hurted anybody, I'm very sorry to say that, and I also give my apologies for that. But it was not nothing personal. It's highly professional, which was very, very objectively delivered. And I also wish, and I for more collaboration with Madras School of Social Work. There can be a lot of research done together to look at how two different countries look at and what are common problems. Because when I was in Indonesia, I see a lot of common problems shared about defining ourselves as professionals in the field of multidisciplinary team. I think I'm looking forward for collaborations with different universities of Indonesia, with Madras School of Social Work, and we can do a lot of research and we can have a lot of visit to one another and learn from each other. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I should thank Dr. Puji who was there. I think when I entered into the conference in first 1 hour, I got a message from Dr. Puji. I said, Lavanya, I heard you come and I saw in the abstract and I wanted to invite you. We have a series like that and we wanted to say, I think he's the first person to be thanked, and the team. Maybe I have a problem in pronouncing the name exactly in the Indonesian language, but I'm very thankful to everybody. Yesterday we had a rehearsal in terms of, how technicality is going to work. And I'm very happy how professionally it has been organized. And thank you so much. And looking forward for you to be in India, in Chennai, in Madras School of Social Work. And I'm also looking forward to be in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya, and we are really looking forward to work again with you in our day. Maybe we can do, like you said, research, or maybe we can do some sharing discussion like this. And uh, this is the great thing that we have this forum where that we can share a thought and then we can learn from each others. So we can broaden our perspective, especially in the social work field. Like when we talk about the social work will also talking about where do we live and how kind of the community of people we are facing, because there will be a lot of perspective, a lot of theory that will be implemented regarding the issues, regarding the condition, and it's really great for us to can share our experience, and it really make us a strong community, the social worker community, especially in Asia. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya. Maybe Dr. Lavanya, the last thing to wrap up this discussion, we would like to invite you once again to give our brief of this discussion, and maybe there's things you want to say to us. We really looking forward to hear from you. Once again, Dr. Lavanya, the time is yours.
Oh, I would want to say just thank you and express my gratitude for inviting me. And we hope one message I want to say, see, today we are going as not as any country's citizen, but as a global citizen, because that's where the social media has brought all together. And in that sense, as a social worker, we should have to have a global identity and not looking at confining ourselves to a particular context. So, how even the within the hierarchies of identity as a North global, global social worker and the South global social worker, that divide has to be merged as a global social worker. I think the role is from both the side, the effort is from both the side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya. Once again, everybody, please give our biggest applause and appreciation for Dr. Lavanya. Thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya. We are really happy to have
Thank
you
you.
here. And please, ladies and gentlemen, let me give a brief conclusion about our meeting today. So talking about the alignment about the social theory and also the practice, bridging the gap between the educators and practitioners, as there is a visible hierarchy rather than a visible interdependence, has to be addressed seriously by the School of Social Work, as we have to realize that we are not only producing students to understand the theory, but they also has to understand how to implement it in the field, as we prepare them to be a practitioner who's going to work in the field of social work practice. And secondly, our social work curriculum must be context specific rather than internationalization of the syllabus, and insight from the practitioner and educator must be vital. As the as the practitioner should be part of designing the relevance and the theories and also practice in the field, because they hold the key and they hold the experience about how to face the client, and it will help us to grow our understanding and also skills to implement it in the field. And the lastly, the international organizations such as IFSW, IFSSW, APASWE, etc., have to play a key role in shaping the regulatory bodies and government for the professional regulation, so we can have a broader and also a strong perspective about the social practice itself, especially in the very specific field of practice. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's our discussion, and it's really an interesting and really heat discussion in the end of our session. Once again, I would like to give a credit to all the participants, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you very much for joining this session. This session will never be success without all the participants from all of you. And once again, this is an example of how we, the social work community, a global social work community, can going together and be strong as one. Once again, thank you so much. I also would like to thank the Indonesian Association of Independent Professional Social Workers for this wonderful session. We are hoping to see you next in our next session. Once again, I'm Uga Pratama Gunawan, hereby close the sharing discussion session. Once again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and especially thank you so much for Dr. Lavanya, Dr. Puji, and all the participants for your wonderful participation to make this session really wonderful. Once again, thank you so much. Back to you, Sandy. Atur nuhun. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to our moderator and speakers. What an engaging and insightful session we just had. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of the Social Work International Lecture Series, I want to take a moment to say thank you from all of us on the organizing team to each and every one of you. Today's session has been a powerful reminder of why aligning theory and practice is so important in our profession. We heard that when theory stays only in classrooms and books, or when practice relies only on institution, both lose their strength. But when theory and practice work hand in hand, our interventions become more ethical, more effective, and more impactful for the people and communities we serve. The challenges of bridging this gap are real, but so it's our commitment. Together, we can turn this alignment into a driving force for stronger social work practice and knowledge. Our sincere appreciation goes to Dr. Lavanya Vinaya Gaswami for sharing her rich experiences and insights on how connecting theory with practice not only strengthens our credibility as professionals, but also ensures that social work continues to grow as a field rooted in both knowledge and action. A heartfelt thank you to our moderator, Mr. Uga Pratama Gunawan, for guiding today's discussion with clarity and care. We also extend our gratitude to Dr. Puji Pujiono, President of IPSPI, for opening to this session with thoughtful and inspiring reflections, and to IPSPI for its ongoing leadership in strengthening the social work profession in Indonesia, and to all our partners, especially the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Indonesian National Council of Social Welfare, our collaborating universities, and the Social Work Students Associations Forum. Thank you for your continued support and shared commitment to strengthening the role and recognition of social workers in healthcare systems. And most sincerely to all of you, social workers, students, academics, humanitarian workers from Zoom and YouTube, thank you so much. Your participation today is a step forward strengthening our professional credibility and toward a future where social work is fully recognized for both its knowledge and its action. Wait a minute, we have final announcement for you guys. If you would like to visit today's discussion, the recording will be available on the IPSPI YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with your colleagues and networks. For those who wish to receive an e-certificate, please make sure to fill out the attendance form, which has been shared in the Zoom chat box by our organizing team. We are also excited to announce our international lecture series sessions, which will take place next month on Wednesday, September 24th from 7 to 9 p.m. Jakarta time. Our speaker will be Dr. Daniel McElroy, lecturer at the School of Social Science, Education and Social Work, Queen's University. She will be presenting on the important topic protecting clients' rights. We look forward to seeing you there. Please stay tuned to IPSPI social media for updates. And with that, we officially close today's event. May the conversation we shared today with you inspire your work and strengthen our collective commitment to justice, recognition, and solidarity within healthcare and beyond. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank
Thank
you,
Thank
Sandy.
you,
Thank you,
Sandy. Thank
Dr.
you untuk semuanya
Lavanya.
di recipient. Pak
Thank
Puji,
you,
thank
Kak
you
Uga. Thank you, Pak
everyone. Thank
Puji.
you,
And
Viro.
thank you,
Thank you, Bu
everyone.
Hastin, Bu Esther. How are you?
Thank you, Pak Puji, Kak Uga.
Thank you, Bapak dan Ibu semuanya.
Terima kasih semuanya. Makasih Uga. Proud
Kak
of
Eka,
you.
thank you Kak Eka. Sehat-sehat ya.
Sehat.
Alright.
Ditunggu di Bandung ya, Kak.
Siap. Aku minggu depan ke Cirebon.
Oh gitu, siap nanti mampir ke Bandung, Kak. Nanti ketemu ya. Bang Putra udah di Unpad loh. Udah S3 dia di Unpad. Nanti ketemulah kita kumpul reuni.
Siap.
Kang Uga, terima kasih banyak ya. Sehat selalu.
Ih, sama-sama. Dini, sehat-sehat ya di Thailand. Jangan lupa pulang.
Insya Allah, insya Allah. Terima kasih Kang Uga. Nanti kalau ke Bandung bisa ngopi-ngopi mungkin.
Siap. Nanti berkabar. Oke.
Makasih.
Sekali lagi thank you Sandy, Disya, Pak Pres, Pak Puji, hatur nuhun Pak Pres.
Iya, thank you very much Kang Uga.
Thank you. Oh, ini juga ada Mbak Ida. Mbak Ida ini dosen mudanya Unib.
Oh,
Pak Ujang, hatur nuhun Pak Ujang, sadayana hatur nuhun.
Terima kasih Bapak Ujang.
Izin live.
Ya.
Ini juga ini ada Ibu Kaprodi Kesos Unpas, ini ada Bu Hani. Ada juga ini ada Bu Riani, ini dosen seniornya KS Unpas. Hatur nuhun Bu Riani, Bu Hani.
Terima kasih banyak Ibu.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak. Salam hangat dari IPSPI.
Hatur nuhun. Disya, Sandi, saya live ya. Sekali lagi thank you so
Terima
much.
kasih banyak Mas Uga.
Insya Allah saya siap bantu untuk ILS ke depannya.
Iya, terima kasih banyak Kang Uga. Sehat selalu.
Hatur nuhun. Mangga, dadah. Assalamualaikum.
Sehat selalu semuanya Bapak dan Ibu. Kami end untuk Zoom-nya ya. Sampai jumpa lagi di ILS bulan depan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Mbak Ida, sehat-sehat Mbak Ida.
Halo, Uga, sehat selalu ya.
Alhamdulillah. Mbak, salam ya buat teman-teman di Unip, salam buat Bu Yesi, buat Ishak, dan buat semua. Sehat-sehat. Jangan ditunggu di Bandung.
Oke, kapan-kapan berkunjung ya ke Unip.